And good morning. It is 21 minutes after 7 o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning from Bristol Law Office, Matt Bristol back with us. Good morning, Matt.
Morning, Mike. How are you doing?
Doing great. How's life at the Bristol household this morning?
It was chilly, children out there, so be sure and wear your coat today. It's like 38 degrees. The wind's about 25 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So the wind chill is about 15. So let's everybody bundle up warm.
Yeah, it is chilly, and it looks cold when you look out the windows this morning, just seeing it, and you're like, oh, you can tell that's not warm out there. So
Yeah, be sure to look to the north because that's where the wind's coming from. And you see the trees shake, and it's just pretty windy out there.
yeah, so bundle up. I know we're not officially in winter yet, but it kind of feels like it this week. So.
And Mike, thank you, Veterans Day. Thank you for being a veteran. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a great weekend. We had a lot of last week and this past weekend with Veterans Day. The schools and various church entities and stuff that did veterans programs around the community here all did amazing jobs. So it was really good.
Oh, good. Yeah, I had a great uncle who flew in the 8th Air Force.
Oh, wow.
Out of England, and they actually had a higher mortality rate than the Marines did in the Pacific.
I can imagine that. Those air campaigns. If you were with a bombing crew during World War II, your percentage rate of survivability was not the highest.
It was not. It was tough. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just you're basically sitting duck up there, and you're hitting with flak, you're hitting with fighters, and then depending on what the missions are, and there was they'd send up 50 B-17s on a bombing run, and 25 may come back sometimes.
Yeah, somehow he survived. Bless his little heart.
Yeah. So, that was a special breed. That I knew a guy. He was our neighbor for many years. My grandparents. He was a belly gunner on a B-17. Ooh. Yeah, and he wasn't. He was a nice guy, but he had his moments where you're like, okay, he's a little something that affected him. You could tell that affected
them and the tail gunners. They were alone for so many hours. They suffered from sensory deprivation.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and by the way, those B-17s were pressurized cabins and everything, so. It's freezing cold up there. It's they're exposed to the elements at 10,000 feet or whatever altitude they're flying at.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they're wearing the big bomber jackets, the big leather jackets, because they're literally in sub-freezing conditions up there while getting shot at and in a metal tube.
Yeah. Uninsulated metal tube.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of. By the way, did you see that at the air show this weekend?
Oh, yeah.
I think it was in Dallas. Yeah.
In Dallas.
That B-17 and basically cut in half by the
Air Cobra. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. What was that Air Cobra pilot thinking? Maybe his controls failed.
Yeah. I don't know if it controlled or if it just lost its bearings, or I'm not sure if those things have radar or what on them. I imagine more modernized. If they're doing stunt flying, they probably
B-17
modernized
was in
them.
front of him.
Yeah.
He flew in from
and that's what I'm
into
wondering. I imagine they're reenacting a battle of some kind, and I'm guessing maybe he lost where he was up there. Because I think they do that at air shows where they'll take a B-17 and they'll get some World War II, and they kind of simulate like a little dogfight,
Maybe,
thing.
yeah.
And I think they were trying to do something like that, and I'm guessing, that's the thing with precision. It's like a ballet or a dance. If one thing's slightly off, then something like this happens. And that's what happened.
Or maybe his control failed. He got target fixation.
Could be, yeah. It could be mechanical too.
It
could be the stick locked up, and who knows what happened.
But it was like boom, bam.
Yeah, those planes are World War II era planes. They're not loaded down with computers and navigation and all the things that more modern aircraft have.
Right.
So to maybe avoid stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I had another uncle who served in the Pacific on a bomber, and he said when the war was over, they had to fly the planes home, and all the air crews were like, "Really?
Right? Like, can I get
over all that water?
Yeah,
do we have to?
Can I get on a boat? Take a nice slow cruise back across
the
pond here." Of course, with all the German U-boats, I don't know if I'd want that either. So even after the war, one disgruntled one floating around out there.
Oh yeah, he said their navigator had kind of sort of a sense of humor. They're flying actually to Iwo Jima one time, and of course, they're flying over this water for however many hours, and finally the navigator says, "All right, Everybody keeping an eye out. Should be around here somewhere. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look, there's all kinds of stories of that kind of stuff from World War II, and setting up fake bases to bomb and everything else. So, I mean, it was all, as much as the strategy was going, there was much kind of subterfuge going on, and there was all kinds of stories of Germans and the Allies building fake bases, so they bomb those instead of the real bases.
Oh yeah,
or create a fake defense that looks formidable that they don't attack, even though it's all logs and smoke and mirrors. There's all kinds of stories throughout World War II and previous wars about that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, the American Brits, they actually had a dead soldier, and they dressed the body up in civilian clothes and the top secret invasion plans in his pocket and threw him in the Mediterranean.
Wow.
And of course the body washed up on the shore. The Germans found the top secret plans, and there's a lot of subterfuge going on.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. If you ever get bored, go ahead and do some research on some of that. You'll probably go into some pretty fun rabbit holes and learn about quite a bit of stuff. So
oh yeah, a lot of interesting stuff.
Absolutely, but yes, good Veterans Day here. Of course, if folks not familiar, Matt joins us once a month here and talks sage legal advice with folks here. We cover. And really, it kind of follows a lot with financial planning too. Even though he's an attorney, not an accountant, but in the legal world, a lot of times bankruptcy, these things happen because the financial planning side wasn't done properly here. So even though he's a lawyer, he talks legal. A lot of it falls into the financial world to avoid having to get to the legal part and keep it into the financial part.
Yepers, that's indeedy.
And that's where Matt really shines at helping people and kind of giving them advice and kind of navigating them through those hairy situations that at some point in your life you all seem to come across. Wills. Anytime there's a family and dealing with property and estate planning and all that, there's a lot of emotion and legal that can get involved with that, along with the financial side.
Sure enough. And actually, the topic today is, avoiding, the older I get, the more important I think avoiding the wrong decision is more important than making the right decision.
I can appreciate that as we all age and get older, but now I'm, going into the 50s here, and I'm kind of, I'm getting that mindset too, where, the older you get, this is where that wisdom thing comes in.
Right,
they kept telling us about when we were younger, in their 20s and everything. You're just headstrong and dumb, and you just do what you think is you can rely on your youth and strength and and that side. But when you start getting in your 50s, 40s, 50s and above, 60s and on, you're now it's always and I don't want to tell the whole joke because it's not family friendly, but it's the old bull, young bull situation. If you've heard that joke about running down the hill, I'll just leave it at there. And but that's the difference between youth and energy and age and wisdom, right? And that joke sums it up in that joke. So.
Well, but if you if you make a bad decision, now you're behind the eight ball.
Sure, you don't have the time to fix it or
to make an extra
mitigate
effort
the
to fix
repercussions.
it.
Yeah.
So one of the mistakes that we see people make, unfortunately, is when they pull out their 401ks to pay bills. And typically those bills are going to be unsecured debt, like credit card or medical or something. And that is an example of a wrong decision.
No, because you're basically selling the farm to fix a quick need. And that's
right.
That in the long term of things, you don't, that you're messing with when it comes to your retirement, your future, your planning, when you put that money into whatever it is you're saving for the future, you want to, the best mindset's always been send it and forget it and pretend it's not part of the portfolio.
Right.
And, keep building it and keep maintaining it, but you never pull from it unless not because you're overwhelmed in credit card, more dire than that. Like you're about to lose your house maybe or something like that. But if you're just behind on bills, 401ks and retirement, that's stuff that you don't really want to mess with.
Don't touch that stuff. That's for your permanent future, and you don't want to be wasting it on.
Otherwise, there's no point in you doing that, because now you're putting a Band-Aid on your temporary fix, and now you're going to have you're not going to have a retirement, or you're cutting into something that you're, hoping that, so now guess what? You're working at Allsups when you're 75
Right.
because that's, you got to keep working.
And under New Mexico state law, all forms of retirement are protected from creditors.
Mm-hmm.
So to GMAT, what happens if I don't pay the bill? They're going to sue me? Well, maybe, but they can't touch your retirement.
Yeah.
Your retirement's protected by law.
Yeah. Now, granted, you might have to go bankruptcy or depending on, how bad we're talking all this, but
could be other options.
But your retirement is still protected. When you decide to retire at whatever age that is, your nest egg is still there, ready for you.
Yeah, I mean, because once you blow that retirement, you can't go backwards in time to make up for it. It's very, very difficult.
And building retirement, and this is why guys like Matt and certainly financial planners always say the younger you start, the easier it is, and vice versa. The older you start, the harder it is. But when you dip into it, say you started young. I started in my 20s. Now I built up something here in my 40s. And then something happens in your 40s where, you spread too thin or you maybe made a gamble and it didn't work. And next thing you know, you're thinking, oh, great, well, I'll use my 401k. Wonderful. But you know how long it took you to accrue that? It's going to be even harder now that you're in your 40s doing it and you've got less time to do it.
Exactly.
And that's why it's so dangerous. It's like, that nest egg you built, you may not have enough time to rebuild it back up. I mean, unless you some lucky fortune falls your way, odds are you're going to have trouble recouping what you paid out the first time.
So as you were saying, start young. So let's say, for example, we got Mike number one, and at the age of 18, he starts putting $100 a month towards retirement. He does it till he's the age of 30. Does it for 12 years. Stops, and he retires at 65. Mike number two, wait until he's 30 years old, puts $100 a month in until he's 65 and retires. 3 times as long. So at age 65, who's got more money?
If you just think topically, you're going to think the person who's been doing it once they start at 30. But I'm thinking with interest rates and everything else, and that money's been sitting, I imagine the person who started younger probably is going to have more money.
Mike number one.
Yeah.
Not 66. Mike two catches up. But he had to put away 3 times as much money just to catch up.
Sure.
So that's how important it is to start early.
Yeah.
So parents, help your kids start early.
That's kind of the lesson when we talk, because at the end of the day, when you're talking about financial planning, you're trying to make your money work for you. Like you're investing it and putting it in things that it's going to grow. If you start that when you're 20 and just let it do that for like Matt's saying here, that's a lot more time for it to grow than when you're sitting there at 10 years later putting it in and saying, all right, here's my $100 and I'm just doing that. There's not enough time for it to grow and to reinvest and, do all the, when we talk about stock market and all that. Yeah. If you don't know what you're doing, it's a volatile and it's gambling. It's going to Vegas and throwing your money in a slot machine. It's about this. If you don't know what you're doing, but if you're smart about it and you do it smartly, and talk to the right people, then it's not like throwing your money into a slot machine. It's more of a strategic plan, and you're basing information and growth and potentials, and you're also evaluating what your own personal wants are. If you're wanting an aggressive, then you do the riskier things. But if you're kind of like, no, I want retirement. I'm going to start in my 25 here, and I'm going to let this thing percolate till I'm in my 60s, and just let it grow and build and do its thing slowly, which odds are you're going to have a lot more money, because those are safer, less riskier investments in the stock market, less volatile things that are more tried and true.
Well, you have to educate yourself.
Yeah.
And so that even if you do go somewhere to get advice, you need to know whether advice is good or bad. You just have to educate yourself. So another area where we see people make bad decisions is it's an older couple, and for some reason, they've run up the credit cards. It may be they didn't save enough for retirement. They don't have enough Social Security, and they've had to use credit cards maybe for groceries or medicine. And the mistake that we see them make is they get a reverse mortgage to pay the credit cards.
Okay.
And it's like, well, why do that? Or home equity line of credit.
Now you're selling.
It's even worse.
Sure.
Because you have to pay back the home equity line of credit. Well, whereas if they just filed bankruptcy, they could have got rid of the credit cards. About 80% of the time, they're judgment proof anyway, because even if they don't pay the credit cards, usually the house is protected by state law.
Sure.
The Social Security can't be garnished. That's federal law. And again, state law protects any kind of retirement income if they have PERA or ERA, or even pull money out of an IRA. That's retirement income. It's protected from garnishment.
So in that case, reverse mortgage is dumb.
Then, yeah, it's incredibly dumb
Yeah.
to pull out that reverse mortgage to pay credit cards when you could have used that for the groceries, use that for the medication, or, some kind of medical aid.
Yeah. But and that's and reverse mortgages that that's another one of those where people there is a time and a place for those, and certain some families might benefit from that, but if you're trying to create nest eggs and trying to bequeath some money to
Children or
younger
grandchildren.
things, the reverse mortgage thing is not your way to go. Now, if you don't have any grandkids or nothing, and it's just you and the couple here and all of that, then maybe the reverse mortgage is you can't take it with you mentality, and you got no one to leave it to. Maybe that's not a bad option for you. But then again, there's other options too. If you're trying to get out of debt, through like credit card debts and things, maybe reverse mortgage is something that shouldn't be off the table, or that's the last step as opposed to.
It's a very specialized area.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful how you use that because you only get to use it once.
Yeah. And obviously you're kind of you're selling the future to bet on yourself now is what you're kind of doing. And when you're in the retirement years, that's not always the first option people want to start thinking about. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So another area where we see people fail to make good decisions is, let's say you have an adult child who's a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if your adult child is in a car wreck, taken to the ER, who the doctor's going to talk to about that child's treatment, medical treatment?
Well, usually it's a spouse if there is one, but if they're
single parent,
then I guess the parents is
now without a medical POA,
Okay.
mommy and daddy. That's going to be your child sitting laying on that hospital bed
So if
because
you're
of the
a
HIPAA laws.
Okay. So if you're a single adult, you probably need to have something in place like that. And the
Absolutely.
problem is, how many of us in our 20s are thinking about something like that?
Well, but the parents of the 25-year-old need
Yeah.
to think about that.
Exactly.
Get that medical POA for their adult single parent
Either
child.
that or get them married off so they're someone else's problem.
Well, so here's phase two of the problem is, let's say your adult child, single parent, passes away in the car wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to raise that grandbaby? Oops.
Yeah.
Didn't think about that.
Well, if you're a parent and you don't have a will, you're making a huge mistake.
Yep.
It's one thing for a single person to not have a will in their 20s. I mean, you don't have a lot of assets. It's not the end of the world here. But if you're
You got
having
a child.
yeah, if you have kids, if you're bringing other human beings onto this earth and you've already done that, then the rules are a little different for you. You just started adulthood a little earlier than others did, so you're going to have to do adulthood things earlier than others did.
You need a will that states
Yeah.
who's going to raise that baby in the event you pass
Yeah.
away. It's testamentary
Yeah.
guardian.
Anytime you bring a child into this, then the game changes because
Yep.
the focus shifts from just you to the future of that kid. And as a parent, your priority number one went from taking care of you to taking care of that child. And
Yeah.
and that's just how parenting is. So you've got to change your mindset. You got to think, okay, I need a will. What happens tomorrow? Not even just money, just what happens tomorrow if I'm not here? Where does this kid go? I don't know.
Where's the kid going to spend the night?
Yeah.
Nobody has authority to sign the kid up for school,
Yeah.
for sports. Nobody has authority to take the child to the doctor's office. And now you got this big fight that could be between the two sets of grandparents.
Absolutely.
It could be, the sister-in-law who drinks beer all the time and wants custody of the kid because this free social
Yeah.
security check.
The spouse you have this with, are you guys good together, or are you guys separated? And are they ably fit to be the parent?
Well,
if you're
yeah,
not?
the other bio parents got first shot. and
Yeah.
if they're not a good parent,
Sure.
then that kid's getting in trouble.
Yeah. But and so yes. So please, so if you're young and you have kids already, you need to be the first first thing you should be doing here is getting this will set up, because accidents, and this is the thing, in your 20s and you're younger, you don't think of the bus hitting you around the corner, because that's, oh, I'm going to live forever. But that's, truth be told, especially young people, most of the time, it's something, an accident, something like that. If you're not getting involved with drugs and all that changes the game. But if you're just an average person who's not into all that, odds
It's the out of the wild blue stuff.
yeah, falling down the steps and hitting your head, or doing the one thing that, and next thing you know, that little accident now turns the whole future of your family is in balance here. So please, if you're having kids, I don't care if you're 18, you need to start doing the will and start getting that ready for the child that you brought into this world.
Mom and dad, if you've got an adult child who's single, you need to get a medical POA over that child if you want to have any kind of input on their medical care.
Absolutely.
So another area where we see people fail to make the right decision is in a second marriage. Often they fail to provide for the second spouse. So let's say, for example, Mike, husband owns a house pre-marriage. He's married 20 years to the second wife, never puts her on the deed to the home. And naturally, he always dies without the will.
Of course.
Of course. So now, what does surviving spouse do? Who gets the house?
That could be a fight.
There will be a fight.
Yeah.
So it was husband's sole and separate property. He had it pre-marriage. And so that passes 1/4 to the surviving spouse, but 3/4 to his children. So now the stepchildren with the evil stepmom or whatever, it's now they own 3/4 of that house. And if she wants to stay in the house, she's got to come up with the money.
Yeah.
So he should have taken care of that.
Sure, make
better.
that plan. And I don't care how agreeable your family is in these scenarios. And you've got
they won't be after somebody dies.
Yeah, but unless you have it down in a will or down in a something legalized form, you can't just, well, I'm going to give it to everybody when I die. And it's like, great, but if there's no documentation to say that, it's he said, she said, and that never ends well. And
right.
So
the dad's instructions were don't count. Mm-hmm. Now the dead guy told me doesn't count. That's all hearsay. It has to be a written to type in New Mexico. It has to be typed will.
Yeah, not even video. You can't whip out your phone.
No video.
And say, here's grandma bequeathing me everything. You can't do that because, and again, the logic here, it may be perfectly legit, but people look in the tapes at, well, was she coerced? Was she in sound mind?
Is there somebody behind the camera with the gun pointing at grandma?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's too many variables that could make this not accurate.
And don't get a fill in the blank will, folks, because New Mexico does not recognize handwritten wills.
So don't bust that out and write it down. So you get with an attorney. Matt Bristol can help you out here, but your attorney of choice, and you sit down and you do this. And this is even because I know there's a lot of the kits now, like with your taxes and with and quote unquote, simple legal documents. There's the internet has now, but I would say any time of that kind of stuff, unless you're a lawyer yourself, why would you even think of? I mean, I don't know.
Some of that stuff's like handing a loaded gun to a kid.
Yeah,
they just have no idea how to handle it.
Like if you're trying to cut corners, maybe that's not there. You want to cut corners.
No,
just
not really.
Let's get the paperwork and do that, because at the end of the day, you may have saved $100, but if you didn't do it right, how much money did you save when you didn't get what you wanted at the end of the day?
Well, and then how many thousands of dollars to fix it?
Yeah.
Okay, so same scenario.
Gotcha.
Husband owns house pre-marriage. Marries. This time he adds wife to the deed because he's trying to think of, okay, I don't want to make the mistake the first guy made. Mm-hmm. I want to take care of my spouse, add her to the deed. They're married 20 years. And they file for divorce. Who gets the house?
Well,
interesting question.
I would imagine because it was accrued together.
He had it pre-marriage.
Oh, pre-marriage.
Then
but he put her name on it.
Put her name on it after the marriage.
That makes it part hers.
Well, why did he put her name on it? He was trying to avoid the problem the first guy had, right? So when they put the husband on the witness stand and go, Mr. Mike, why did you put your spouse's name on the deed? Mike says, well, I was trying to avoid the problem the other guy had. And so I was engaging in estate planning, that if I died, my wife would get the house.
Sure.
I was trying to avoid the first guy's problem.
Right.
Oh, so Mr. Mike, you're engaged in estate planning? Yeah. But did you actually intend to give away half the house? Well, of course not. It was merely estate planning. And New Mexico has upheld that. And
So that's a legitimate, reason in New Mexico.
It is. And we're talking 20-year marriages.
Wow.
Oh, I put the name on 20 years ago for estate planning. There's no intent to actually give half away. And the New Mexico Supreme Court has upheld that.
And that's a debate for another day.
Interesting, huh?
I could see maybe if it's only been a year or two, but 20 years.
Yep.
That's a long time. She's got stake in the game. You know what I mean? That's
at the time you made the gift, what was the intent?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting question.
But then again, that's part of that staying up on this kind of stuff too, because 20 years ago, they were never thinking of divorce and all that. Now that we're talking about that, maybe you need to relook at how you set it up and see if that's the right way before you go down the divorce route.
So the fix for all this probably is what's called a transfer on death deed. Husband executes a deed that says, when I die, then my second wife of 20 years gets the house.
Okay.
So if he dies while they're still married, the wife gets the house.
So actually will the house to him?
No, it's not a will. It's a transfer on death deed.
Gotcha.
Because transfer on death deeds avoid probate.
Okay.
Will does not avoid probate.
So she can save a little money and all that.
Save all that money.
Okay.
Also, he can revoke that transfer on death deed anytime he wants.
Okay.
So if they file for divorce, boom, he revokes it.
Gotcha.
And she won't get the house.
Perfect.
He gives it to the kids or whatever.
But again, if you don't know these kind of things and you don't set it up that way.
Talk to the lawyer.
Yeah. This is why it always pays to have the conversation first. And that's why, and that's really what, when we talk about your practice and your office here. And before Matt will give you any kind of advice, he's going to sit and hear your whole story because his advice will change as the story unravels.
It's fact dependent. Yep.
If you walk in and say, "Do I know a will?" He's going to look at it and say, "Yeah, probably." But
let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. And then listen to the story and it'd be like, okay, yeah, you need a will because you need a will, but what you're trying to do, I wouldn't do it through a will. We're going to do it this way. So,
exactly. Or I've had people say, I made my will 10 years ago. Do I need a new one? I said, well, I don't know. Let me read the old one. And I say, okay, it says this, this, and this. Do you still want that to happen? They go, yeah. I said, you don't need a will.
Gotcha.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly. But this is what we're talking about. Don't assume anything. Don't read something that you read on the internet and preach it as gospel. It is
exactly.
Not, depends on where that came from. Each state is different. Just because we're in the United States doesn't mean the United States have the same laws each state when it comes to any of this stuff we're talking about. Marriage, divorce, property, wills, any of this stuff. Each state is different. And something that you're trying to pull off may work in Texas, but it does not work in New Mexico. And that's where your lawyer needs
to. There you go.
That's why you need the lawyer. Because guess what? The lawyer is the person that's the expert in the state's law in which you're trying to do what you're doing.
Yeah, New Mexico is one of 8 community property states in the country. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of other states that have different property laws, marriage laws. And even Texas, even though it's community property, it's different laws than New Mexico when it comes to certain things.
Sure.
And so it's very, what we call fact dependent. It just depends on the facts of the case and where you're at.
With New Mexico and a lot of the differences that is it a mixed bag where sometimes some of the things we do here are better than other situations versus, or is it all like, it means a lot more pitfalls in other states?
Well, one thing I like, I can compare and contrast one issue with us in Texas, for example. So let's say Mike inherits oil and gas investments, properties, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So you've got this sole and separate property that's producing income.
Gotcha.
So once you're married, that money from the sole and separate sources remains sole and separate. In Texas, the income from your sole and separate properties is community property.
Ah, okay. What would you rather have? And I'm thinking, all right.
I like door number one, please.
So, yeah, and I think most would. I mean, some would probably answer differently. So, but that's just, again, a difference.
A subtle difference.
Yeah.
I had a case where lady passes away in New Mexico. Evil stepchildren live in Texas, so they hired a Texas attorney. And so was not a very nice person, even to me on the phone. And he would say, well, there's this valid holographic will that blah, 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 blah. And I just kept my mouth shut because New Mexico doesn't recognize holographic wills or handwritten wills.
Gotcha.
But they do in Texas. So here he was under this major misassumption that he was just going to threaten my life with. And I just kept my mouth shut and smiled. Just try that over here, buddy.
Just gave him the rope to hang himself.
Try that.
Half the battle sometimes just give the people the rope. But
can't wait for you to tell the judge that.
Absolutely. Good luck with that. Well, I just saw the time. We're running a little short here, but obviously, if you have questions about anything we're talking about here, please reach out to Matt's office.
Give us a call, 625-5284.
Absolutely.
And we're having to change our web page name.
Okay.
There's a couple of snafus, so we're working on that.
So more to come on that one. Call direct. Give them a number one more time.
625-5284.
Very good. And, of course, he's located here in the J.P. White building on the corner of 3rd and Main, downtown on the 4th floor here. So you can call, get an appointment, and he'll be happy to sit and talk with you about,
come see us.
And to be honest, if there's nothing to be done, he'll tell you, and you have your meeting and walk away and go about your day.
Yep.
But if there is something more that needs to be done, this is, please, anything when it comes to your future planning, whether it's dealing with wills or dealing with your assets and what to do with them and how to protect them. Please come with your stuff to Matt and let him tell you whether what you're doing's right or what you're doing is going to get you in trouble.
Yep.
And let him walk that path and help you navigate through all.
An ounce of prevention, folks. An ounce of prevention.
You'll save a whole bunch of headache down the road.
Darn right.
You got time for fact or fiction here?
Oh, did I tell you my Kim Commando story?
I don't think so.
So, Kim Commando's on, this same station on Saturdays.
Here on Saturdays, right here on Rouse's Talk FM.
That's it. And so I was listening to her one time, and I guess apparently she lives in Phoenix because she hikes Camelback Mountain.
Yeah, I knew she was in Arizona area. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she hikes it quite a bit. And so apparently about halfway up the hill, there's Bob. And Bob sits there with an ice chest. And apparently a lot of people hike Camelback who are not prepared. Don't realize what they're doing.
So Bob is preparing people or helping people out that aren't prepared.
Yeah, it's his voluntary first aid station kind of thing. And so one time she's hiking up and there's Bob and she goes, "Hey, Bob, how's it going?" He just rolls his eyes. And there's this group of people sitting over there and the woman has sandals.
Oh,
one of the guys has a flannel shirt.
I thought they're going to Club Med.
Totally unprepared for the hike, right?
Yeah.
And so Bob asks Kim, says, "Do you have any extra water? I ran out." And she goes, "Yeah, sure." So she walks over to the group, gives them an extra bottle of water. And they're very thankful. They're in Phoenix, right? So one of the guys says, "Well, hey, what are you doing later on tonight?" And she says, "I beg your pardon. I'm a married woman." And he says, No. So we're giving a concert and we can leave a couple of tickets at the front door if you want. And she goes, "Well, I don't know. What kind of music do you play?" He says, "Well, we're the Talking Heads."
Oh, wow. Talking Heads, good musicians, not so good at wilderness survival.
So I thought that was a cute story.
Did you go to the concert? I hope she went to the concert.
I hope so.
Price of admission was a bottle of water. It's pretty good for a Talking Heads concert.
So I think that's a cute story.
It is very good. Again, give out your phone number one more time.
Call Matt Bristol, 625-5284.
Good deal. And bristoloffice.com, but it's under renovation construction right now.
Yeah,
and
let me change it to something, but it'll be similar.
Very good.
Be patient.
But just call him or come by, and he'll be happy to get you an appointment and talk to you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Enjoy it.
Thank you as well. We'll let you get to it. I'm sure you got a stack of things waiting for you upstairs here. So, and his coffee looks low, so we better get a reboot. Thanks, Matt. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.